Hi everyone, this is the Advocate, and I am bringing you another video on the Barry Morphew case. Well, actually, it's not really a case yet. It is in, these are all little notes and pieces and parts of stuff from the beginning of Suzanne Morphew going missing up till now. So I'm just grabbing things and talking about them and explaining them in a little better detail. So one of the things that I'm going to talk about in this session or this video is the fact that what had happened was in about February of 2020, Suzanne was trying to just catch Barry saying and doing things. So her friend Sheila purchased her a spy pen, and it is exactly what you would think it would look like. It's very James Bondish, and I kind of was hoping to have one here that looked like something similar, but it doesn't matter. Just use your imagination or Google it, and it looks exactly like that. It recorded, and it would record at, I don't remember how many hours of data. She put it in Barry's truck, and I think it was voice activated. So basically what would happen is Barry got in his truck and he would listen to, he liked true crime stuff. So he listened to a lot of forensic files cases. On this one particular day, what the spy pen recorded was 3 very specific and strange cases. And you've got to just pause and look at the cases, and then it kind of does make your mind wander a little bit, because especially looking back at like the arrest affidavit, some of the things Barry has said himself, and now that we have a body, like you'll see when I talk about one of the cases that he listened to. So let's start with, so the 3 cases were called the forensic files. It was the case of the girl in the pink bike. So to touch on that one, just a sidebar, statistically speaking, when somebody is abducted from a bike, the abductor always takes the bike. And why is that? So the reason for that is because if they take the bike at point A, and let's say it was right around the corner from the Morphew home where Suzanne's bike was found, if it would have been that they would have taken the bike there, then nobody would have known the point at which she was abducted, if that were the case. And then they'll usually discard it some random place, like miles away, like miles and miles away, and then miles away from where the body is found down the road. You'll see that in some of the cases surrounding, like, trying to think of the names of the girls that were abducted and then murdered, that are near the Delphi case, Evansdale. That's the case. And they were on bikes, and the bikes were hidden underneath a bridge that were away from where they were originally abducted. So it's just kind of like that way. They never, ever leave the bike at the scene, because then you know, okay, they were taken like at the park right by their house. Like, now we start the search here and we go to this perimeter, right? Okay, it's just a sidebar. So then the other case was the case of Lemuel Smith, and it is called, Vicki Lynn Hoskinson is the girl with the pink bike. And then Lemuel Smith's is pastoral, I believe it's called pastoral care. And he was a serial killer and a serial rapist. And he killed Donna Payant. Donna was the first woman corrections officer killed in the United States. Donna was only in her 30s, and she was good at her job and really made a mark for herself, because like she was in a max security prison, which was Greenhaven security, extremely violent, max security, super max, the most violent offenders in New York. And these men were some bad dudes, right? But he was in on a case that he had killed Mary Lee Wilson and another gal. And I'm not sure what her name is. I'm not even sure if it is like where it's documented. I apologize for my voice. I have like damage to my esophagus, and it just decides some days it'll work and some days not. So anyway, so basically, he had raped Mary Lee Wilson and this other girl, and then his signature in that was that he bit them, and his bite mark was the trademark, like, or whatever, the signature. It was like a crescent. Okay. And then the last one was the case of Walter Scott, and it was called The Cheater. Now, this case is interesting. So Walter Scott was a performer and a singer. Walter had a song called The Cheater that was a one-hit wonder of the 60s. He, ironically, it's called The Cheater, and it became his actual life. So he had his first wife, who I think he had an affair with. That was, he was married to first one lady. I'll get more into the case in a little bit. Then he had, he married Joanne. While he was married with Joanne, he had an affair with this backup dancer named Suzanne. So some interesting tidbits. All of these cases have a little something in common with some things we've heard and seen, either from the arrest affidavit, from preliminary hearings, from where Suzanne's body was located, from the fact that there was a bike involved, from her name, from there being an affair, for there being multiple affairs. There's just a lot. So let me summarize, because some people are not gonna watch all of these episodes. I have many times, and I watched the case of Vicki Lynn Hoskinson. I think I've seen that at least 10 times. But after Suzanne's body was found, I went ahead and watched that one again. And I watched the FBI version, and mostly because that's where they chased him down. So let's start with Vicki. She was just a little girl. She was just a little girl. Vicki was just loved her bicycle. It was pink. You know, if you have kids or grandkids or when you were little, you can relate to that, right? Vicky cherished her bike. So Mama needed something dropped off at the mailbox, and Vicky asked if she could do it. She could ride her bike. Well, Mom was a little skeptical, but she decided that she would go ahead and let Vicky ride her bike to the mailbox or the post box or whatever that was not very far away, and that she would trust her to make this like little bike ride. So what ends up happening is Frank Atwood and his friend get into a little tussle, a little argument, and Frank is mad. Frank has issues. Frank was from California, but for some reason, he happened to find himself in the same neighborhood as Vicki Lynn Hoskinson at the time she was riding her little pink bike. Well, he got mad at his friend. He left his friend and started driving his bike. So he spots Vicky and he decides, I'm going to take this kid. So he grabs her, puts her in his vehicle, leaves the bike behind. As he's backing up, he leaves some remnants on the of his vehicle on the mailbox because he hits it. So it wasn't like he made kind of quick work of what he did because he ended up, there was massive search parties almost immediately because this was so uncommon. I mean, literally, the girl has never left home without her parents. Like, the bike was abandoned. Vicky loved her bike. It was found in the middle of the street. So there's the first red flag. Suzanne's bike was purposely, like, law enforcement said that it was like staged upside down. Like, that's what the affidavit says. The officers questioned, like, somebody had to deliberately put it like that because if she had wrecked her bike, it would have ended up in a different position and the brakes would have shown skid marks and everything. It had none of that. Sidebar. So this also had the case of Vicki Lynn Hoskinson made massive, extensive news coverage. This was in Tucson, Arizona. So the last thing Mom ever heard Vicki say was, I love you. And fast forwarding, a lot of searches, a lot of neighborhood searches, lots and lots and lots of searches, because it turned out that it took 2.5 years for them to find and put Frank Atwood to trial. And let me tell you a little bit about where Vicky was found. Vicky was found in a desert kind of area. A lady was walking her dog, and along, just on the road, and the dog kind of like veered off a little bit, and she found the skull of Vicky, what ended up being Vicki Lynn Hoskinson. It was a shallow grave, and it was a small human. The rest of the body was scattered. Sounding familiar? More than 100 people scoured the desert looking for Vicky's remains. So let's see. Her lower mandible, and I'm sorry, this is probably a good time to say there might be a little trigger here, was found in a gopher hole. After everything was said and done, the person that found it went and planted flowers there in Vicky's memory, but they were able to match her dental records. So this was 8 months after Vicky went missing was when they found her body. And in his car, so they were able to find where her bike was. You know, they saw, one of the detectives had said, hey, did anybody ever see this like little, like kind of gouge or like ding in the mailbox stand? And it had never been tested. So they figured out what make and model the car was because of that. And in his car, there were zero hair. There was zero hair. There were no fibers, and there was no blood. And who does that sound like? We were at those pretty much like with Morphew. Like none of that was available. So what also gave it away is what gave this particular guy away is when they figured out the car, they also learned something else. So a guy from the school had like been outside watching the kids and saw that there was a strange vehicle that was kind of going slow and watching the kids. And when he saw that, he kind of jotted down like license plate information and the make and model of the car and like what the guy looked like. And he said that he was a male, long dark hair, beard, and he got the license plate. Well, and it was a small black car. Well, that's how they traced it to Frank Atwood. And they ended up finding him in Texas. He had all this like bloody clothes and like it was just all weird, like just gross. So in March 26th of 1987, he 2.5 years after she disappeared, was when he was convicted, I believe. And ironically, which I'm always on the fence about executions. I don't want this to be like a blah 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 like kind of video about that, because it's hard to say, like, I like Christian woman, like I am not really crazy about execution, but the torture that he put this poor mama through, and like I think at one point she was even questioned as to whether or not she did it. And like there was a lot that this mama went through. And so she even changed laws in Arizona because of Vicky, and was able to institute laws and everything. So I haven't gotten to delve into that yet because I'm just trying to like kind of catch up on everything to give everybody a background on Morphew and where we are at before another arrest is made. And I don't know how long we have before that could happen. I don't know what the police have and everything, and I don't know who they're looking at or whatever. I have my beliefs, but I don't know. I don't know what law enforcement has. So Frank Atwood was actually executed by lethal injection in June of 2022, so just last year. So that there were a lot of parallels with Morphew, with the bike, with the desert, like shallow grave, like body scattered, like the way they searched the desert, like no hair, no fibers, no blood. Like he cleaned up his vehicle. Like, I mean, she was clearly in the vehicle, and she was clearly like he sexually abused her and everything. Like he was that kind of guy, and so stuff had to be somewhere. How did he cover all this up? Like, it's a very interesting case that you can watch on Forensic Files and the FBI. I think it was like FBI Files or something that I watched the other one on. But just search Vicki Lynn Hoskinson, and there's lots of stuff out there to look at and read. And her mama has done some good stuff out of all of the suffering and pain. Okay, so let me toss that note aside for now. The next case we're going to talk about is that Barry listened to that was recorded on the spy pen, was the case of the my brain just died, was the case of the cheater. Or no. We're going to watch, we're going to talk first about, we could do the cheater first. Okay. So, Jim is a guy that married his wife, and I can't remember what her wife was named, but she was killed in a staged auto accident. The reason that they knew that it was staged after the fact, I'm just going to summarize this because I'm like at 22 minutes already, and I don't know how long people will watch all of these. I mean, obviously it's better than watching 3 episodes. So fast forwarding, Jim got out of the vehicle. He had already killed his wife. I believe I think he strangled her, and let me see here. Yeah, I think he strangled her, and then he might have beat her with some kind of pipe or crowbar, and then he also he lit the grass on fire by where he like wrecked the car off the hill, and like intentionally. And then, but she was like kind of fallen off the seat anyways, and she had like damage to the back of her head, and like where she wouldn't have from just an auto accident. And then the driver's seat was like way far back, which she was much smaller. So, and her husband, Jim, was actually a big guy, so he would have definitely had his seat back, right? And so, fast forwarding, Walter Scott was a man that was interesting. He was a performer. He sang the song, he was known for one song called The Cheater. It's a groovy song of the 60s. You can look it up and listen to it if you wish. He performed all over doing this one-hit wonder. I wonder what he sang also, like if he did shows, like, but he only had one hit, like, and it was like, look out for the cheater. It's just a weird song. So it was hysterical. So I got distracted for a second because I do have the Adelson trial on, and Kathy from Gossip, Rumors, and innuendos is hosting for Brandy Churchwell while Brandy is at the trial. And Brandy just came out. They must be on a lunch break. And so I just caught a lot of jumping around and excitement, and it caught my attention. So what ended up happening was, so Walter was a cheater. He lived up to his song. Walter was the homicide victim of James let me think what his name is. Oh, dang. Williams or Wilson or something. I'm unorganized on that. Let's just call him Jim. All right. So Scott was married to Joanne. Jim was married to the lady that he wrecked the car down and like beat her with the crowbar. And so he got rid of his woman, and Joanne and him were having an affair. And since Walter was having, gone all the time doing his shows for his one-hit wonder, he was also having an affair. The woman that he was having an affair with this time around was a woman that was his backup dancer, and her name was, dun, 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 Suzanne. So that's weird. So we see this little conundrum because everybody knows Morphew was having affairs, okay? I will tell you this right now. I had somebody contact me that did not want her name out there at all about him reaching out to her. And it was like, this poor girl is still a mess. And she never, ever went out with him. So, like, but not because he wasn't trying, he scared her. People are afraid of this dude. I know that I have other pictures on my phone of his women. I know women that he hit on and tried to start something with. And I know that other people have other connections that know of some. I mean, all right, look, I've been posting on Twitter that multiple times in the unredacted AA, Barry repeatedly objectified his wife, and he would say, like, the dumbest stuff. Like, he would say that men are just out for sex. As long as they get sex, they're just happy. Like, what in the tar? Not every guy is like that. Not every man is just like, gimme, and like, and so shallow that the only thing that they're looking for out of their significant other is sex. But Barry used it to control. He used it. He was a sex addict, and he was self-absorbed and a narcissist. And so, of course, he was all about doing whatever Barry wanted, And I know everybody wants to say, but there's no receipts on Barry. Listen, there are plenty of receipts on Barry. There are plenty of websites that Barry and apps that Barry was a part of that people, including law enforcement, are well aware of, and also so was his wife well aware of it, and others. And at the end of the day, just because Suzanne had an affair that got recorded on the device, that doesn't make her a bad human. That doesn't mean that she was should have been murdered. that wasn't Barry's job to make sure that that happened. Like, she didn't get what, the punishment that God had for her just because she had an affair. If so, then why is Barry still here? Like, I mean, like, Suzanne didn't set out to have an affair. That just kind of happened. And it was because of the abuse and everything that had worn her down. And I'm not making excuses for her affair, but I'll leave it at that for now. Okay. So, Walter's having an affair with this Suzanne chick. All right. And so he comes home around Christmas for his break. He's not performing. And Jim comes up behind him and kills him, shoots him right in the back. And it's like, okay, this just got interesting. Well, Walter's parents thought it was strange because later down the road when his body was found or whatever, like, he didn't have shoes on. So they had made up this whole story that he went to go get a battery and he never came back. And then his car was found at the airport, and no flights were ever had his name on them. Like, there was no manifesto, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if that's the case, like, he obviously never left home. Well, his parents, when his body was found, noticed that he didn't have any shoes on. Well, when he came in the door, he took his shoes off. Well, so clearly he was killed without his shoes on. He was killed in the house. That's how they determined that he was killed in the house. Well, when his parents came, like, the next day to see Joanne and comfort her, and they were worried, like, where's Walter? This isn't like him to just disappear, like he just got home. Well, Jim's sitting at the table going through Walter's jewelry and stuff. Like, what in the world? Like, he's just sitting at the table going through his jewelry, seeing what could be sold, and, like, going through his personal items. And he had already gone, like, they got in the vehicle and went to, like, Pennsylvania, and went through the trailer to see what musical gear was his that could be, like, sold and everything. It just is, like, so tacky and weird. So when they went to the motel to search through Walter's belongings, they shared a room there. And so that was just really sketch for his parents. Like, something's not right. And then there was a situation where his son was incarcerated, Jim's, and told them, like, something about there being, like, a red barrel and, like, cold water. Well, they couldn't figure out what that was about. So they searched around Jim's house, and there wasn't, like, a lake or anything. There wasn't, like, any bodies of water that made sense for that to be, like, that's where he would have gotten rid of him. But what he did do was he built he buried him in the backyard, and he covered him in plastic and put his credit cards and everything underneath all of that. And it was like he covered him his body was floating like in a cistern. He weighed him down with blocks. And then like he built a flower box over top of it, like in the middle of a really bad snowing day in the winter. Like his neighbors were like, yeah, the thing that we did notice that was weird is that he was building a flower box in the middle of a snowstorm. Like that was so weird. And so that, that was strange. So in a sealed bag was Walter's credit cards, and he, like I said, he was shot in the back. He was fully clothed, but he had no shoes on. So he obviously didn't leave the house to go get a new battery for his car. He was killed in his house because otherwise he would have had shoes on. Joanne was charged, but she, as I think she might have been charged as a conspirator or whatever, but it never really held up. She was given 5 years and she only did 18 months. Like, are you kidding me even? Like, 18 months was a slap on the wrist. Jim, on the other hand, he is away for 2 lives. Well, actually, he died. I don't remember what year, but he was 72 years old. And he died in prison. But he was in on two murders, one for Walter Scott, and the other one would have been for his wife, because they obviously tied it together that, he had obviously killed his wife and staged the fake auto accident, because when they exhumed her body and found like that she had been bludgeoned in the back of the head with like what they believe was like a crowbar or some kind of pipe. And so that's what happened with that. So, let me make sure I summarized all those up. So that was the cheater. Now, we are going to talk about Mr. Crazy, which is the Mule Smith. And I believe this one is called Pastoral Care. It's for Forensic Files. So he was originally in for the murder of Mary Lee Wilson and another girl on a serial rapist, serial killer. His signature was that he bit and it was like a crescent, and he had like a gap like on in the lower part of his teeth there. And so it was very clear that he was like missing something there. Look at me. I'm like, I should just color my tooth green. Okay, enough of my silliness. So I'm going to try to wrap this up to keep it under 45 minutes. He was in, those two women were killed in Schenectady, New York. And so he was being housed in the Green Haven Security prison, and that is, like I said earlier, Supermax. And he had actually, like, his forensic psychologist, Dr. I didn't write his name down, but he told his doctor to make sure that he never got out because he would do it again. Are you kidding? Like, he literally told him that. And like, he said, don't let me out because I'm going to do this again. Like, he knew himself. I'm like, holy Toledo. And so he was actually really good in prison. He was like super good. Well, if you know anything about prisons, when you're good, you get rewarded good behavior. You get good things happen to you. Well, one of the biggest blessings is if you're in a prison and you're good, you will get to be part of the chaplain's crew. Well, the chaplain, with that comes a lot of privileges. And in this case, it gave him access to go between block cells, or corridors, however you want to say it. I don't have a picture to show you of that prison. But again, it's max security. So like every so often, everything is locked down, right? So every certain amount of cells, it's locked down. And like there's a lot of inmates that are locked down. Like in some of the big cases that we've seen, like Alec Murdoch, like he's only allowed out an hour a day or whatever some of these big cases are, like Chris Watts or whatever, like they're in their cells like 23 hours a day, like, you know, so because they're just so high risk and dangerous people. And so basically he had free reign. He could go down to the chapel, the chaplain's office, and do whatever. Well, Donna Piant was, like I said, like 30-ish. She was a woman CO in a male prison. That's kind of rare. Like there's not a, maybe there is more of that now, but I'm not really a huge fan of that, because I've seen women, in my experience, I've seen women raped. I've seen them cornered in a cell, and I've heard they've been raped and other stuff by inmates. And when I did prison ministry and stuff, so I'm not huge on that. It's nothing about equal opportunity. Sometimes just put a dude in there, because whatever, like make it about, you know, man to man. Anyway, sidebar. So, when Donna met Mr. Lemuel, he also has another talent. He was very good at like carving things. So she asked him to make her a jewelry box. And it's hard. Another sidebar. Okay, it's going to be a little bit longer than 45 minutes. Because when there is a changed inmate, changed by Jesus, changed by behavior, changed by serving time, and they're no longer are that person anymore, and you can really see that. You can develop a good relationship with them. I had relationships with women at the prison that I did ministry at, and I pen palled with some of them, but some of them started to scare me when they found me, when they got on the outside. They looked me up on socials, and you know, a couple of them we provided stuff to get established on the outside, but then sometimes that wasn't always enough. Like they're cons. Okay, they're cons, and that doesn't really ever leave them. And so anyways, and when you do stuff for them, sometimes they expect something back, or they do something for you and then they want something back or whatever. Like I never asked anything from any of them. One of the gals was in on, I can't remember what she was in on. Probably definitely some kind of assault. And she was huge. She was a big mama. And I was much tinier than I am right now. Like I was like, before I got really sick. And she would pick me up and carry me. She would see me and come running, and she would pick me up and carry me around. The guards were always watching, like, she's just carrying her around. It was kind of funny. But she was also one of the ones that, you know, was from my area, and so she was seriously looking me up all the time. And it was like, I didn't want her, like, coming to my house, like, and only because I knew she was still doing stuff on the outside. So anyway, Anyway, here we go. So what happened was he made her the jewelry box. He called her, and an inmate calling a CO is a like, no. And so he called her from the chaplain's office, and there were other guards standing there. And so what happened was they were like looking like, what is going on? Like, who's she talking to? And when she's like, I got to go deal with something. So she goes down to the chapel, and she has an argument with Lemuel. And Lemuel is like, wait a second, like, I did you a favor. And she's like, you know, I don't know, like whatever, maybe slams the box down and is like, you can't do this. Like, he gets mad and is triggered by whatever rage, and basically decks her, like knocks her to the ground, and like starts tying up her wrists. He strangles her, he rapes her, and then he cleans up all the mess, puts her in a trash bag, Morphew people, and just like she's just mutilated, like just like in this trash bag. And like, then he cleans up the room, mops it and everything. The only thing he did wrong was like when he swept, some of her hair got like swept into the closet in the chapel. So they did find that. And then he put the bag of garbage on like a dolly and wheeled it out to where the trash was and threw it in the trash dump, like hopper or whatever. On top of it, so then it goes, the trash gets picked up, and then it goes to the dump. And I don't know how much everybody knows, but like each area of, you know, a neighborhood or a business or a whatever has a certain spot at the dump that they like put their trash at, right? So it goes over to the area where the prison stuff is all thrown away, and it's compacted, and all of her bones are broken now because it's been compacted. Well, they find her body. It's awful. I need to breathe for a second because it's overwhelming. What they also found is up around her, on her chest, bite marks, and they matched his signature bite mark. There's a forensic odontologist, that was a new word I learned yesterday, who, had just gotten done studying his signature bite mark. And he was like, wait a second, I've seen this. And he was able to match it to Mary Wilson and the other gal. And they figured out that he was, because what they already knew was this happened on the inside, right? Because she didn't leave the building. So, right. So this happened, all of this. So they go to find him. Of course, he denies it, right? And they ended up figuring out everything. And so, but she was literally the first female corrections officer murdered in the United States. But now he's in solitary confinement for 23 hours out of the day. The only time he gets to come out is just to shower, and I don't know if he gets to exercise or whatever. I'm not sure on what Greenhaven is, what they do. But just tying this all up together, you could see some similarities when we're talking about Barry Morphew and what he was listening to and watching. There were other ones that he watched, but law enforcement didn't include those in the arrest affidavit, so they must not have seen significance in those. I would love to talk to them now after they've found Suzanne's body and seen the condition of how things were and how that ties to evidence that they've seen or they've had in their possession for the last 3.5 years, how that ties to anything, or if it does at all. I'm not even sure. You know what I mean? I'm just speculating. All of this is just, me just giving you my thoughts and opinions based on watching the shows for myself and just kind of tying it to what the things I know from the AA and just watching the preliminary hearing or the tweets and recaps from like Lauren and just studying this case from day one. So I'm going to have a lot of videos coming out this week, so stay tuned. But one thing I'm going to leave you with is that I think it was Nancy Grace, if I'm not mistaken, but she made this fantastic quote. She said the most perfect thing: the cover-up is the evidence of the crime. And in this case, man, there has been a cover-up extensively. There has been a cover-up from day one, from several days before to from us finding out that Suzanne was even missing to even yet today. And it continues. So everybody, when you see situations or hear situations, don't be afraid to speak up and don't be afraid to speak out and stand up, and because love shouldn't hurt. See you next time.